Hello everyone, just checking the technical stuff. We'll soon begin here. Just seeing people join. Great, so I hope everyone can hear me okay there. There will be this, you can probably see this Q&A in the middle of your screen. That's for later, but any questions, even if they arise in the middle, you can write them down and then we'll have time for questions and any special topics as well. So just give it a couple of more seconds here for people to have time to join. I see the numbers are increasing all the time, so we're having people joining. Yeah, happy to see you. So I'll present myself soon, but I will doing this together with my function, who you've probably heard about. So I'll actually start by sharing my screen and we will get going and people join more and more. But I'll start so we can kickstart this now. So hopefully now you're seeing the screen for this webinar. So shortly about me. I'm a physiotherapist working in Sweden with clients actually all over the world. So my name is Rasmus Svärd and I've been part of the MFF research team. That's part of why I'm doing this today because I know the team very well and we've done what we call the shoe effect together, which I'll talk more about soon. But we basically went to Sri Lanka and looked at a lot of people's feet and compared barefoot walking people with shoe walking people. I'm also the co-founder of Wide, so that's a brand, a footwear brand with we call it functional shoes, but I'll come more to that later. So that's like my background. But on a daily basis, I have a clinic. I have actually several clinics around Sweden where we help people with pain problems. And I myself am fully booked for over a year now and work a lot of people with different pain problems. So this is one of the things I hope you will get out of today to really understand what is the reason behind the pain, because so many people have painful bodies in this day and age. So we'll just hop on to what we will cover today. Like the key question here is like, how does the human body really function? And I mean really function. We'll dive a lot deeper into that than hopefully you've done before. And why do so many people have pain? And I will be having this in a very interactive way, so it will not be just you listening. We'll actually do a lot of stuff together. You'll get the feel in your body and hopefully have a couple of aha moments. And then, of course, we'll have some hands-on advice for you to try directly during this webinar, which will be fun. And then we'll end up with question and a Q&A session where we'll just go deep into any questions you might have. So more on that later. Okay. So we'll actually start by you standing up where you're at. And I'll stand up myself as well. So I'll put myself here and we'll just do some tests together. So if you can, where you're standing, just stand on your spot, just move around a little bit and feel whatever, like I want you to stand, what feels the most comfortable and natural to you. So don't think about what's correct or right or wrong or whatever. Just feel what is most natural to you and just stand there. And then I want you to first look it down at your feet and just notice at what direction are they pointing. You can look at your second toe, and is that pointing straight ahead or is it pointing outwards or inwards? The most common, most of you will notice that your foot is actually pointing in a direction slightly outwards. It might not be that much. For some people it's a lot, for some people it's less. But actually as soon as the second or even sometimes the third toe is starting to point a little bit outwards like this, it will have consequences. Obviously, you're supposed to be able to stand in a lot of different manners. So that's not what I'm saying. But if you relax and just, what feels most comfortable to me, you want your body to align more or less. But I'll come back to why this is so important. Another detail you might notice is that you actually want your big toe both your big toes to face each other, to actually point a little bit inwards. That's the feeling. So just notice this in your own body, and we'll have tips and tricks for this later as well. But just look at yourself and notice if your feet are pointing a little bit like this. I want you to try to actually put them straight ahead. Just place them straight ahead. It will feel a little bit inwards probably. And just notice how that feels in your knees, hips, and overall sensation in your body. And I want you to remember that, because we'll change that during this webinar. But just remember how that feeling is at the moment. So that's the first basic test. Then I want you to once again just stand in a position that feels most natural to you. Just take the position that feels most natural. And then I want you to actually close your eyes and just relax and just notice how your body feels. I want you to notice how your calf muscles feel, if they're tense or relaxed. I want you to notice how your quads feel. Are they tense or relaxed? I want you to notice your lower back. Is it tense or relaxed? I also want you to notice your glutes. Are they tense or relaxed? And also notice lastly, your neck and shoulder area. Just notice if it's tense or relaxed. Perfect. Remember all this, because then we will come back to this later actually, and we will start to do things to actually make changes in the body, because all the areas I talked about are supposed to be completely relaxed. And if they're not, which is very common, if you're feeling tense muscle spasms, it doesn't have to be that bad, but you have tense muscles in those areas, it means that your body is at the moment compensating to keep you upright against gravity. And there's an easier way for your body to do that. I'm not saying a better way maybe, but well, it actually is better because it will feel better in your body, but we'll come back to that. So that's like a baseline now for your functions in your body. So to explain what we just did, what is a natural foot position? And I'm also talking about natural and not normal here, because let's see what happened there. It went quick. I want that slide to show, I thought. Okay, now it looks good. So what is natural? What is natural is what's inbuilt into us humans, like what we're born with. That's a very natural thing, like a natural foot function, for example, is the foot actually pointing straight ahead. I'll come more to why. When the foot turns outward like this, that means that something has happened in the chain, the kinetic chain, and I'll also come back to that. What is normal on the hand is something else. It's very normal to have feet pointing outwards because it's a very common compensation. And actually, when we look at the foot, I think I can show you like this. Here, you can see, I'll actually do like this, so you can see it better. I'll stop the sharing here, so like that, perfect. So now you can see it better. So if we look at the foot, it's a very, very cool structure overall. But if we look at it, when it points straight ahead, the human foot has very short toes that can act as levers for us walking straight ahead like this. One of the very key things is for the big toe, when walking, to bend like this, because the plantar fascia, a structure underneath the foot, goes from the big toe to the heel area, and it will actually, when bending like this, pull the foot into this position, which is very important when walking. So we're not collapsing, we're getting a rigid form here, and then push off. And for that to happen, we need toes that are quite short and pointing straight ahead. If we have a foot that goes like this, outward, then we'll actually collapse in over the foot like this. We'll not use what's called the windlass mechanism. So we'll not use this function, this primary function in the body, which will mean that the foot might collapse in more than not function as optimally. So this means that a chain of compensations will happen. So if the foot turns out like this, you'll not use your toes as the levers they can be, which will actually weaken the foot muscles and stuff. So that's one of the reasons it's so important for the foot to be straight ahead. Another reason, which I'll actually show in full body again, that most people don't think about, is you can try this yourself as well. So please stand up again. And if you try to put both your feet outwards like this, so they point straight outwards, and then I want you to take your legs and turn them inwards, like rotating them inwards like this. So just rotating them in with feet pointing out. Then you'll probably feel, or you should feel, your foot valves collapsing. So the lowering of your foot valves, your arches, they should lower. If we compare that to having your foot straight ahead and turning your legs outwards like this, you should feel your arches heighten. So they should lift themselves up. We'll try it once more, just so you can feel yourself. So put your foot outwards and turning your legs inwards like this, and you'll feel your arches lowering. Put your foot straight ahead and turning your femurs outwards like this, your legs outwards, you'll feel your arch heightening. And what this means that the arch of the foot, which is a very common topic. So I'll just put myself here again. So a lot of people talk about the arch of the foot and how important it is. So the arch is dependent on the foot itself, but it's also dependent on what happens throughout the whole chain. So what is very common, unfortunately, is that the foot is outward and the leg is inward. So that's a tibiofemoral torsion, it's called. It's a torsion in the knee like this. And that means that the weak hip flexor, glute muscles, and a lot of muscles around the hip, they're too weak or at least not functional enough to keep the leg in the position, which makes for the foot to collapse in. And if this is the case, you can do all the foot exercises in the world, and they will only help temporarily, because you actually need to look at the hip as well, because that forces the foot arch to collapse. On the other hand, it can be the other way around as well. Like you can do all the hip flexor exercises in the world, that will not help if you don't look at the foot. So it's always important to know what is the case in your body and your situation. We'll come more to that to test these things. But I hope you got an idea of how this all comes together. So I will. Oh, there's already questions in the Q&A, so we'll come back to that, as I said, but that's great. So any questions, just put them there, and we will come to them. So just to come back to how this all ties together, because when we're standing upright against gravity, as humans, the gravity always wants to pull us down towards the floor. So there will be what we call the collapsing tendency of the skeleton. So the skeleton will fall in a specific order. And when this happens, for example, the arches will collapse, the hips will fall forward, as you can see on the picture here, and everything will collapse with it. There's a chain of muscles actually who are very responsible to counteract this. Actually, I think I'll show this on myself standing again, so you can really get the feeling. And you can do it with me, so you also get the feeling for what I'm doing. So if I'm standing up again, under gravity, my pelvis area will actually fall forward and tilt backwards like this. So this will happen like this and like this. So if I have no muscles at all, gravity will make my pelvis fall like this and tip like this. And the thing is, how does this tie into the foot position that I talked about from the beginning? Well, if the foot is turned out and the femur is turned in, which is very common, this puts my hip flexor in a position where it's very difficult for it to stabilize the whole pelvic area, which means if this happens on both sides, both legs turn out, my pelvis will fall like this. And I know a lot of people have felt this happening to them, like feet out, knees locked out, pelvis forward, and then the hunch comes on it. So it's like a kinetic chain of events that happens. So feet turn out, this falls forward, and I collapse like this. And this is extreme, of course, what I'm doing now, but a slight version of this is very common, actually. So if I just do slightly and just walk, you can probably recognize this walking pattern, which is quite common, actually. Swinging like this. So the forces are going in rotation instead of going straight ahead. And we as humans are so well adapted to standing upright and resisting gravity. And we're so well adapted at an effective walking or gait cycle. So it's like inbuilt into all of us. But some key things need to be in place for it to happen without a lot of compensating patterns, which a lot of times also become reasons for pains and stuff. I'll just have a quick look at the Q&A to see if it's anything related to this. And yes, there will be a replay, so you can know that. And the other one I'll come back to. Okay. Okay, so that's like the whole system is a unit. So feet out will make it more difficult for the deep hip flexors to hold the pelvis in the position that's optimal when standing upright. And we're all meant to be able to stand upright and walk forward. That's basic human functions. So a lot of people have probably heard that it's very important with the core muscles. But then the question becomes, what is the core muscles? Well, first of all muscles are important, and there's no muscle that's not important. All of them have their purpose and function. But if we look at the human's capability of standing upright against gravity, it's very, very important to not, if we think from this from a point like back in time, when we didn't have all these food supplies and we didn't have the modern facilities that we have now, we needed to be very energy effective. We needed to be able to walk long distances without using too much energy. When we're standing up, I am supposed to be able to stand up and talk to someone without consciously thinking about my posture. I'm not supposed to think about my posture. I'm supposed to just stand there and use my brain to think about important stuff. But the thing is, the way society has, like, how can this happen? Like, what's the innate function in our bodies to make this happen? It's using muscles that are very deep inside the body with good levers and have some more, like the muscle fibers that are more like they can go on for a longer time. So that's the type of fibers that's more important. It's not the explosive ones, the ones that are longer lasting than that. So those are some of the criteria. It's also good that they can coordinate with the fascia, deeper fascia layers of the body as well. So for this to happen, or you can say it like this, of course, a lot of muscles can hold me upright. So if I'm standing upright, everyone is more or less standing upright. But some people, and maybe you yourself, when you tried it before, feel tense in their calves. They feel tense in their lower back, maybe. That's very common. And the glutes, a lot of people feel like they're tensing up. So these muscles, if they're tense when you're standing, your body at this moment are using those muscles to resist gravity. And the question is that optimal or is that natural? It might be normal, very normal actually, especially lower back and shoulders and neck is very normal to feel them tense up when standing for longer periods of time. But is it natural? Is it the natural function of the human body? I would say no. Normal, yes, very normal. So it's completely fine if you feel it. But there are easy solutions to make your body find a way to resist gravity without using these layers of muscles that are more superficial. So you want to use the deeper layer in the body. And we'll have some concrete exercise tips for you later today to show how we can fix those things and make your body feel lighter actually, because when the deeper muscles work alone, you use less energy in total, and the more superficial muscles, they actually relax. So the tenseness in your lower back and your neck and shoulders, that actually goes away and just relaxes. So when you're standing upright, I'm not supposed to use more muscles than those we actually see on this picture. So the ones we see on these pictures are some of them, this is not the whole body, but some of the muscles are responsible for us standing upright. There's also deep muscles in the foot, for example, and so inner thighs, deep hip flexor muscles. The diaphragm is also involved. You can kind of see it in this picture. And the iliopsoas muscle might be the most important ones. I think actually I have, oh, maybe it's not here, it's later. Okay, we'll come back to that. So the iliopsoas muscle is a very, very important muscle for this, and I'll actually show you why later as well. But these muscles are supposed to be the only ones working when standing upright. And if they're not, you're compensating. And we'll come back to a solution for that. Another key concept that I think is very important to understand is what is the functional root cause? It's not just about if I have pain in my elbow or in my foot. Well, okay, there's the pain area. That's the area that's painful for me. But what makes that be painful? you want to find the real cause for it, because that's like how we change stuff. So I'll show you an example just to get the feeling for what I'm meaning here. So I'll do full body again so you can see me showing here what I mean. Okay, so I'll give you a scenario. This is quite common, actually, a version of this. This is just one version. You'll probably know someone or maybe know yourself and know about someone who has the same kind of experience that I'll just tell you. So this is an example. We have a person who looks down at their body. And maybe you can do this too. Just look down at your body when you're standing up, or maybe you noticed before. And one of the feet is turned out more than the other. This is so common, that one foot is more turned out. It could be an old injury, it could be an ankle sprain. For example, if I sprain my ankle, in the recovery process, to recover quicker, I actually turn my foot outwards to not put too much pressure on the ankle sprain when it's recovering. And that's fine, that's supposed to happen. But then when it's healed, I'm supposed to put my foot back in position and walk straight over it again. Sometimes this doesn't happen. And what can happen then? So I have a foot turned out like this, and I have my femur turned in like this. And if you remember before, what happened then? Well, the foot arch collapses down. When I have this position, the foot arch collapses down. So this might lead to inner knee pain. So I get an inner knee pain here on the inside of my knee, because all my body weight pushes into the structure here from the inside of my knee. So that makes me get an inner pain here. And that's fine. I mean, it's not fine. We don't want that, but that happens. And then maybe I don't know much about my body, and I just hear about the insoles or orthopedic insoles, and that's a good solution, maybe, I think. So then I put one under my foot, because when I go there, the therapist tells me that I have low arches, especially my right foot, which I have because my foot is outwardly like this and my leg is like this. So that pushes my arch down. So the real reason would be like the whole looking at the whole leg, but since I trust this person, I put an insole that lifts my arch on my right side. And this actually might put less pressure on this pain spots. So maybe I get less pain in my knee. But the thing is, the pressure goes from the inside knee to my outer hip here. So I get a lot more pressure on my outer hip. But I don't think about this because I don't feel it initially. So I go on my day, I play my soccer or football, I play my tennis or whatever I like to do. And after a while, I get the pain on my outside of my hip. And I feel like so unlucky. I just got well in my knee, and now I get pain in my hip again. So I think of it as two separate problems. But really, it's just the same problem, just changed position, because I just changed where my forces go inside my body. But then I heard of something called foam rolling. So foam rolling is this thing when you lay your body weight and you roll to stretch out the IT band. That's a popular thing to Google. So I do that actually, and then actually it kind of helped me. I got less sore and I could continue playing my tennis, and my knee doesn't hurt and my hip doesn't hurt. But I feel fine in the moment. But what I don't think about, what happens really with the body when this happens? Well, I have this twist in my leg and I have this pain here. What also happens is my brain doesn't trust the right leg anymore. So my body shifts away from that side, and to hold my balance, I actually side bend slightly. And to have my vision straight, I actually side bend my neck as well. This is very, very common. And if you want to check yourself, if your right foot is more out and your right shoulder is lower, or vice versa, this could be you actually. But anyway, so this is a typical thing. So I'm finally free from my pain in my knee and pain in my hip, and I feel fine. I go on my day. But since my body is actually twisting or turning to my right side, I'm kind of falling that direction. That means the other side of my lower back needs to be in constant, it needs to help me pull against resist gravity all the time. So I'm not falling even more to that side. So I'll have a muscle here that's tense all the time on my left side. But I feel okay. I don't think too much about it. But since it's tense all the time, one day after playing 2 hours of tennis, I didn't feel it when playing the tennis, but then I'm at home and I'm just going to pick that paper up, just a small side bend like this. And the muscle is so tense. So now when I just do a small, silly little movement, it actually tenses up really, really bad. And I get a real spasm and I can't barely walk. And then I feel so unlucky again, because like this is a third problem in a very short time, and I feel like the most unluckiest person in the world. But really, it's just the same functional pattern with 3 different symptoms. But I have really bad back pain now, but I heard about this chiropractor down the street. So I go there and they help me, and then oof, I do this, what's called a $1 million roll. And you can discuss if it's good or bad, but at least it helped me now. So I feel like, okay, now finally I can be pain-free because I don't feel my knee, I don't feel my hip, and I don't feel my back anymore. So now I just want to play my tennis. And I'm on my way in the car to my tennis session a couple of weeks later, and I feel finally I'm free. But what I didn't think about is this pattern is still here because I never corrected the functional root cause. So I still have this twist in my leg, I still have this shift and this side bending, which means biomechanically it's more difficult for me to turn my head to the left. But I don't know this because I'm just driving to my tennis lesson. So I'm just driving there, and then there comes this cyclist to my left, and I quickly turn my head to pull on the brakes. But then, since I have this thing, I get this sharp pain in my neck. And that's when I give up. That's when I feel like I'm just so unlucky. I cannot ever be pain-free. So I just feel like whatever I do, I will have so many problems, and I feel like the unluckiest person in the world. But really what I'm saying here is like, because this is typical. It's typical that you have pain in one area, and then the next area, and then the third area, and then the fourth area. And you feel that it's being unlucky like multiple times. But what I'm saying, not always, but very, very, very often, is really one problem giving you 4 symptoms or 3 symptoms. But it's really just one problem behind all of this. And this is what I call the functional root cause, which is, I would say, so important to look at and try to isolate. And that's what me and my team do. And I know from a foot perspective that's what my foot function as an organization does a lot, and that's why we bond over a lot of stuff. Okay, so the question then becomes like, how did we end up here? Like, with all these functional issues, there's so many people having so much pain, and all of us, like you probably yourself, or you know someone who has a lot of pain issues in your body, really. So like, how did this happen? And I wouldn't say it's not your fault. It's society's fault as a whole. So, for example, when we develop in early stages of human life, one of the first things we do before walking and before, well, maybe at the same time as trying to stand up and stuff, is the deep squat. So it's very early in our development. The first thing we do is actually strengthen our neck to open our airways, and then it's like crawling to develop the deep hip flexor strength and stability in the arms. And then we come to deep squatting, and then we walk, more or less, you could say. It's a little bit more complex than that, but more or less. So the deep squat is so perfect for us humans because it's full ankle mobility, full knee mobility, full hip mobility. You need deep hip flexor strength to sit there, and you need core strength as well, you could say. So it's like the perfect position for us humans. But what happens very, very early in life is that we start sitting in school, for example. And if we look at people from all over the world, in societies where you continue sitting in a deep squat regularly, that means often a lot less problems. And in, for example, most of the Western world, we sit in schools from quite an early age when we sit in chairs. And what happens when we sit in chairs? We get a lot. I'll actually show this on myself on the big screen because it's so you'll know what I mean here. Because this is so common, so common. So if I've been sitting, I've not been using my deep hip flexor muscles, so they become weak. And when they're weak, when they're supposed to be resisting gravity when I stand up. But if they don't, I have to take a wider stance. So that's a compensation, because now I need to recruit more muscles than just the deep postural muscles. And then I often turn my feet outwards so I can recruit more lateral muscles as well. So I can use these muscles to simply resist gravity. So this is a compensation for me not using my deep hip flexor muscles. Very, very common. And the reason, one of the reasons for this, there's one more big reason as well, but one of the reasons is us sitting in chairs. So we stop using this. And when this happens, just to show you, when these become more weak, this happens as well. And when this happens, the arch is lower. But it goes the other way around as well. So the foot is the second thing that's so important. And I suspect a lot of you already know that it is, but the foot is very important for us to consider in this, because chair sitting is one thing, but if you look at this picture, we're back to what's normal and what's natural. So looking at the human baby foot, you can see such a splay. The toes splay like crazy, you could say. It's probably natural, not like crazy, but it feels like that for most of Western adults. But if we look at the picture here on the screen, we can see a baby foot, and we can also see a grown-up foot from a person who has been living in Sri Lanka being barefoot his whole life. And here we can see that the shape of the foot is still intact. We still have this wide functional foot. I would call it very functional foot, and it's very natural. So this is the natural for us. And being in Sri Lanka for a month with the My Foot Function team, well, it's life-changing in many ways. And it was so visually common to see these very functional feet with the wide display of the toes. We'll come back to that, but I want to say that's so natural to us as humans. But if you compare that to probably what more looks like maybe yourself or your neighbors or people in your life in the Western world, it's what is normal. So we have to differentiate between what's normal and what's natural. So what's normal is more like these feet we see here. And one of the pictures to the right here is of a cop in Sri Lanka who really made an impression on me, because he was working long shifts, 16+ hour shifts in modern Western boots. And as you can see, his feet is clearly deformed, like most of our feet are in the Western world, with a clear hallux valgus angle in his big toe and crowded toes. And it was so common, like we could see it over and over again. I'll go back to the natural looking foot, because this is natural. It might not be normal, but it is very natural. So this is how we saw hundreds of these feet of people when they were actually working and living barefoot. And as soon as we saw it could even be siblings. You could have one brother walking in the field barefoot and have a functional foot like this, and his sibling, the other brother, working in a bank, for example, and having a modern shoe and having completely crowded toes. So it was very clear difference between how you used your foot and how it came in its shape. So I want to convey the message of normal versus natural. And if we once again look at the human body and what we're constructed for, if we compare ourselves to monkeys, for example, because we are really made for standing upright and walking straight ahead. And I did already tell you this, but humans have short toes that point straight ahead. And there's a very specific reason for this. And I'll show you again with the plantar fascia. But if you look at the monkey foot here, you can see it has longer toes, which becomes a lot better at gripping, but not as good when it comes to being levers for walking, for example. So I'll actually show you this again. So it's visually for you. So I'll show you again so you really understand this point, because it's so important. We'll see if we can get that. Oh, perfect. So this is the human foot. So as I said before, we have kind of short toes, and when they point straight ahead, we can walk over the toes like this. So I'll show you the side view. We can walk over the toes like this. And why is this so important? Because from the toes, beneath the foot here, comes the plantar fascia, and it attaches here at the heel bone, which means that when we bend them like this, it will pull the heel bone closer to the forefoot like this. And I'm over showing it to make it clear, but this happens like this, which makes for a very stable push-off. So when we're walking, we're coming here, and then we're walking like this, and then we're pushing up. But if we don't have the foot straight ahead, so this is why we want to walk over the toes like this. But if we have the foot turning out like this, then we'll collapse over the arch like this, and we'll do this. And of course, this is a little bit maybe not that much that I'm showing now, but it's still the same point. So if I turn it out, I'll collapsing like this and come this way instead of truly using the toes as the lever they're supposed to be. So this is one of the things that's so unique about the human foot. It's such an amazing construction for us to walk straight ahead. And of course we have some gripping as well because we need to hold our balance on rough surfaces, but the lever function of the toes are very unique to the human, comparing that to that of, for example, monkeys who have a different type of toes. So they're better at gripping and climbing, but we're better at walking. So we really are adapted to be walking straight ahead and having that. Okay. Okay, there. No, yeah, okay. So this picture shows that more or less then. And here's also a picture of what I just showed you on the skeleton, that when we're bending the big toe, we're actually heightening the arch, which we're supposed to do when we push off. So the foot is supposed to be able to switch between being mobile and rigid, but we're coming back to that as well. So that's one of the very, very cool things about the human foot. This is a picture to remind you what I told you about before, like how gravity affects us. So gravity actually pulls our skeleton down towards the floor. And what you see here is what you will get if you have no muscles at all, you only have a pure skeleton and then gravity, this is how it will collapse on itself. And this is one very, very key component, because here you can see what muscles need to contract to resist gravity. And you want it to be as few muscles as possible, to be as energy effective as possible, and not use conscious energy to hold us upright and stuff. So the deep hip flexors, deep foot muscles, knee muscles called popliteus, the adductors, the diaphragm, and deep spine muscles are responsible to keep us upright and resist gravity. But this is how gravity affects us. And actually, a lot of biohackers today, they're so keen on what they eat and so keen on a lot of living things, like how to live, but they kind of forget gravity, because gravity is a stimuli that we cannot escape gravity. We always need to resist gravity in some way. So being very energy effective actually helps the whole body function better. And here it is, the muscle iliopsoas. Such an important muscle, and it actually resists gravity in all three movement planes. So what that means is, I'll show you like this probably. I'll just exit the screen so you can see me. If I show you with my arm, biceps muscle here, it contracts this way, and triceps that way. So when this contracts, this happens. When this contracts, this happens. So they resist each other. So gravity, what it does with the body is make it collapse in on itself, like I showed you on the picture. And the iliopsoas muscle actually resists gravity in the complete opposite direction. So many times the iliopsoas muscles you hear that you should stretch them, or you hear that they're too tight and they cause low back pain. But actually, my clinical experience says that the most common thing with the iliopsoas is that it's weak and too long. It might feel tight. It might feel like you want to stretch it, but that's because it's tense. And that's not the same thing as it's being long or short, actually, because it is often long and not short. And I'll show you why again, full body again, just to show you. Because if the iliopsoas muscle is short, it looks like this. So it bends me like this. So that's a short iliopsoas muscle. But many people feel more people are actually like this a little bit. So then the iliopsoas muscle is in a long position. So it's actually long and not short. But it's long and resisting gravity. So it's trying not to be even more collapsed. So it's so tense. So you can feel the tenseness in the muscle. So you want to stretch it, but the solution is really not stretching it. The solution is strengthening it, so it doesn't have to be that tense. And an easier example to understand is when we look behind our back here, because most people are a little bit rounded in their shoulders like this, and what that means is gravity is trying to collapse me even more like this, and these muscles are tensing up to resist gravity. And I feel a muscle knot here, and I want to stretch it out. But the solution is not to stretch it out. The solution is to strengthen me into a position where they can relax. And it's the same thing with the deep hip flexion muscles. It's just easier to see this in front because many people think that a short muscle and a tense muscle always go hand in hand. But a muscle can be long here and still tense. So that's an important thing to understand around the body. Okay, we'll go back to the slides here. So, yeah. Okay, so now we're coming from the hips more to the feet because they're equally important, if not even more important, because they're the foundation with the ground. And if just like a short thing, if we have functional feet, functional hip flexors and pelvis, and our breathing is fine, our rib cage, if those three areas work fine, you don't have any problems as human, in at least not in motion. So it's very important. But the feet are so important. And I was talking about sitting before because that's a thing that our society does. We sit too much too early in school. And the other thing we do is we destroy our feet with our footwear choices. So let's have a visual picture here to show you. Yeah. So is footwear important? And as I told you in the beginning, I am a co-founder of Wide. So of course, there's a lot of brands out there that are great. And obviously, I will always think that Wide is the greatest, but you'll have to semi-listen to me here. But the point goes to all footwear brands with wide toe boxes. It's a lot better. But I'll come to how I reason around the foot and footwear choices soon. But looking at this picture here, we can see that the standard fit is like the most typical brands, like most modern brands. And I don't need to name anyone because it's more or less every brand out there. They're crowding the toes. And it's called the toe box. So in the front of the shoe, it's like pointy, and that means that the toes are coming together. And it's so destroying foot function, really. So if we remember what the natural foot looked like, it's very unnatural to have the standard fit, even though it's the most common. And that's why probably the most normal foot position is the crowded toes and the hallux valgus angle of the big toe. So this is just a visual photo to show you like how a foot is supposed to naturally look and how a shape of the foot is, or a shoe, the shape of a shoe should mimic the foot's shape and not the other way around, I think. We'll come back to that. So just some photos to illustrate the point here of what is natural and how does a foot look when it's not been pushed inside a tight shoe. So here are some barefoot people from our study together with My Foot Function in Sri Lanka. And it's, I mean, you say that a picture says more than 1,000 words, and I think this is the case here because you can clearly see on the people to the left here that they have been barefoot. You can see it on the feet, and you can also see the big toe splay and all the toes splaying, and it's such great function. And some people will argue that they have low arches, but they actually don't, because when we put them on the plantar pressure plate, we can see no sign of a collapsed arch, comparing that to looking at research in, for example, in Sweden, when we also did a pilot study. And to the right, we have people who often in higher up in the hierarchy in Sri Lanka when they have afforded modern shoes, and we can directly see what happens. Their toes are crowded, big toes are getting this hallux valgus shape, and it's so sad really, because the better they do economically in their society, the more they do Western stuff, and they actually destroy their feet in the process. So that's sad. And the picture I just showed was from Sri Lanka in the year 2023, and this picture is from a long time ago. It's the Hoffman study from 1905, I think it is. At least it's a long time ago. And so they knew already back then, but obviously not enough people have known, so we still have the normal shape instead of the natural shape of the foot. But this is also a telling picture. But just to show that this is still the case, these pictures here are from very not so long ago. So it's still the case in the world today. But then the question, of course, becomes, why do we need an aligned big toe? I mean, and why does it need to be strong? Is it really that important? Well, in every step you take, force distribution is supposed to be like on this picture. You're supposed to see that you strike, it's not a heavy strike, but you strike the heel and then you roll towards your big toe. And you're supposed to push up off via the big toe, which means that if you don't have an aligned big toe, how can you push off from it? And what happens if you don't? Well, the arch will collapse. And I'll show you this again on my skeleton here so you can get a visual picture of this. Yeah, so here we have the foot again. So we want to land and then push off through the big toe here. So through like this. But if the big toe then is not aligned, so it's over here, and the foot is also turned outwards, which is a very common combination. If this happens, then I'll have nothing to fall onto. So when I land, and then I'll fall onto just the inside, and I'll just collapse into the structures, the fascia and the structures up here, instead of really using the big toe as the lever it's supposed to be. So the big toe is actually 4 times the size of the other toes. So it's supposed to take a lot of pressure in comparison. It's meant to do that. That's its function. But if it is out of position like this, it can't help. So then you'll just collapse into the arch instead and get medial pain issues. And if you don't get it there, you'll get somewhere else. You'll get problems up the chain, or at least not function as optimally as you would want to. That's one of the reasons it's so important. Let's go back here so you can see this picture again, because here you can see that, yeah, that's really like how force distribution is supposed to be during the gait cycle there. So we really need a big toe that's aligned, or else we'll have compensations up all the chain. And it can even be, the foot can be the reason why you have shoulder pain, or why you have hip pain, or lower back pain, because as I was talking about before, like you want to find the functional root cause. And for many people, it is the foot. Even if you have hip pain, or even if you have lower back pain, it's very, very common that that's the problem. And here is a very good picture to explain what the toe box is, because, well, I think we should have shoes that are shaped like feet and not the other way around. So we have this natural foot shape, so that really can happen. And here we see a very narrow toe box on the picture to the right. And to the left, it's the Nova model from Wide Footwear, which I helped create. And it's actually what we wanted to do is to make it not look as wide as it is, because it's really, really, really wide actually. And I guess you can tell from the pictures, but even the color there can trick the eye a little bit, so it looks less wide than it is. But it's very, very wide actually. So a functional toe box to the left and a non-functional to the right, if you want a foot that functions. And just a quick look into how we as humans can behave crazy sometimes, because you could say we have become heel obsessed in modern society, and especially nowadays it's mostly females. But actually in the beginning, from the first, well, early in the history of heels at least, they used horses for horseback riding. So you could actually use the heels in the stirrups to ride horseback riding. And so it was a functional purpose in that sense, maybe not for the foot itself, but it had its purpose. And then from Persia, people doing horseback riding, they came to France, for example, and the royal families were talking to each other, and the heels became more common. And for females, they did the heels smaller to make the legs look longer and thinner. And for males, the heels were thicker. But then over time, it became more and more just for the females. So it's interesting, because now it's fashion. Nowadays, it's fashion. Even though I would say the trend is somewhat changing, but it has been for a very long time the most fashionable type of shoe for women. But it started off as with a different purpose, and now it's become fashion and has zero functional purpose for the foot. It's ruining foot health in so many ways. It's really, really bad for the foot, because it's also a very narrow toe box, and yeah, a lot of problems arise from that. And this is an even more extreme example of this, the foot binding and the lotus-shaped feet from China. I don't know if you've heard about it, but if you haven't, these pictures might shock you because this is true. And this happened for many, many years. It's illegal today in China, but it still happens. But back in the day, this was very, very common. And yeah, as you can see, this foot has been very misshaped, and yeah, by binding the foot and pushing it into a very tight space. So really, this is the extreme version of the modern shoe. And I'm a little bit harsh against the modern shoe saying this, but at the same time, if we really think about a high heel and a narrow toe box, it's the foot position will not be that far off from this. Of course, this is more extreme. Of course, this we can look and frown upon and be like, oh, that's so crazy. But actually, in today's modern society, aren't we still more or less doing this, but in a semi version with modern footwear? I think we are. So I hope that you and me and a lot of people will help turn this around and make us drop the illusion of the old footwear and move on to functional footwear, which I'll come back to. Another very, very hot topic to discuss is the genetics part, because it's so common, especially when talking about the hallux valgus issues. That means the big toe is misaligned. So common to blame genetics. And speaking from personal experience, together with the MyFootFunction team in Sri Lanka, we saw so many cases of siblings and people from the same family. So they have very common genetics, having completely different feet depending on how they have been using them, like if they've been barefoot or using shoes or such. And here you can see, well, to the left you can see how a modern shoe, as we've been saying, crowds the toes instead of making it having room for them to splay. And here's a child you can see in the middle photo of a small child who's just starting school, and in school the parents have bought a shoe, which is a modern Western shoe, as you can see. And that when we look at this picture, it's so telling that obviously her foot cannot fit inside the shoe, and that will create a shape problem. And it's so sad to see, because she's pumped up for school and a new start in life, and then this will happen to her foot health as a byproduct, and that's sad to also sad to inform the parents about that as well. And to the right we can see a sister. You'll see the rest of the family soon. She made a really lasting impact on me because all her family had perfect feet except her. She was the only one who went to school. The other siblings and the parents lived barefoot and had so good feet, aligned big toes, no tendency into hallux valgus. And we talked to her parents, and her parents didn't have any hallux valgus, and their parents didn't, and so on. So she was basically the only person in this family with misaligned big toes, and it was clearly because of using shoes in school. So even though she had a good start in life education-wise, comparing maybe to her siblings and friends, her foot, or both her feet, actually took a very hard toll because of this. And on the next picture here, you can see almost the whole family. You can see all the daughters and the mother. So you can see the two sisters. There were actually three of them, but the two older sisters next to each other, and you can clearly see how the big toes are aligned to the left and not to the right. And on the next picture, you can see all four girls in this family, and the youngest one, if you look closely to her big toes, you can actually see how they are definitely splaying. They're pointing like they're almost abducted in their position, which is so cool to see and very natural for her. And they're not, so I'm not saying they're not even straight ahead, they're even more abducted than straight ahead, which is crazy. And we saw that also on some of the very older population who had been 80 plus years old, were walking barefoot all their lives. They also had this position. So it's obviously natural to us, even if it's not normal. And as you can clearly see, her mother is also functional in her big toe position, and the only sibling having the hallux valgus is the unfortunate one with the modern shoes. And we have so many, before I leave that, so many cases of this with siblings, different footwear, which really, you can't blame genetics in these cases. And from my perspective, genetics, of course, plays a role, but it's not the major factor. It's the footwear and the movement patterns and hip function and the whole chain, the whole kinetic chain is the biggest factor, I would say. Okay, the shoe effect. Well, that's what we call it, the biggest study yet in this type of study. And here you see a lot of aligned big toes. Just some examples of what we saw there, like no hallux valgus, straight toes, very healthy, functional feet. And if someone thinks some of them are collapsed arches, they're not, because we literally looked at them at the plantar pressure plate, and we know how that looks with a collapsed arch, and they didn't have those type of pressure points. So they're not. And I think this picture is so telling, because it's about balance. And I actually want you to try this if you have the possibility right now when you're listening to this, to just stand up. So I want you to stand up, and actually I'll do it myself as well. So we can do it together. So I'll do like this so you can see. Okay, so I want you to simply stand on one leg, bend the other leg, hands at your waist. And we can start by just standing like this and see how that feels. For some people, this will be difficult, and for some people, it will be easy. If you feel it's easy, try also closing your eyes and just feel how that feels for you. I'll just let you try a couple of times. If you fall, if you're still standing, very good on you. And we'll see what happens here. Because the thing is, we want to be able to stand here at least 30 seconds, hopefully 60 seconds or even more. And that's with eyes closed, but it's very uncommon, very uncommon. Most people can't hold their balance very good. So I'll give you a quick tip so you can try it again. If you're still standing, you can stand down. And if you fell over, you can try this. Or if you lost your balance, hopefully you didn't fall over, just lost your balance. But if you take your big toe and align it, you push it away from the other toes. So you push it away from the other toes, and then you press it down into the floor. So you try to anchor it into the floor. So you really have focus on your big toe. And then from that point, you lift the other leg and you try to hold your balance again. Probably what you'll feel is that you're more grounded, you'll have easier time holding your balance, and your big toe will be able to assist your balance in a better way. So I just wanted you to feel that experience. So try that for yourself. So it's not me just saying this, it's also you experiencing this. So to illustrate my point, show you here again. So when you're holding your balance, 1 second you're falling this way and then you're falling this way. So that means that your foot needs to compensate for this and hinder you from falling. So when you're falling this way, your little toes are helping you, but when you're falling this direction, your big toe here is supposed to be pointing here and saving you. But if your big toe is over here, there's nothing really to save you, and you'll start orient your whole foot like this. So what really happens is you'll see big movements like this. It's called orientation, instead of small adjustments. That's called relative motions. So if your big toe is aligned, you have a lot better chances of holding your balance, because it will save you, and the levers for these muscles will be a lot better to just hold your balance here when you're falling inwards. And to illustrate a real life example of this, I will again share my screen here, because this man is not young, he's actually very old. And for him, even though he's very old, when I test 80-plus-year-olds here in Sweden, they can literally, with their eyes open, not stand more than a couple of seconds. 1, 2, max 5 seconds. It's almost always that they lose their balance. But this man is not young at all, and he stood there for quite a while, not even understanding what the problem was or why this was a challenge at all. And if we look at his foot, we can kind of see why. Because look at that big toe. It's actually splaying away from the other toes, which anchors him, and which means that when he's falling, his big toe will save him. So this is just such a telling picture of how the big toe is so important for balance, which is another reason you don't want to crowd the toes together inside a shoe. You want space for that big toe to do its job inside a shoe. So footwear is very important. And here's just a picture from the pilot study we did together with Mindful Function in Sweden. And comparing the big toe alignment in Sweden versus Sri Lanka was shocking, to say the least, because in Sweden it's like 1 out of 10 in the best case, 1 out of 10 people had an aligned big toe. And in Sri Lanka, it's the other way around. So it's very difficult actually to find non-functional feet until we found, for example, the cops and the teachers who had the modern Western shoes. Then it was easier. But barefoot people had perfect feet. So what can we do about all of this? Because of course we don't want to have pain in our body, and we want to feel the best we can be. So society is the biggest, I would say, like the biggest thing here in society is like as a society, since we are sitting in school early, we're destroying hip function. And since we have very narrow shoes early, we're destroying foot function. And then we're stressed, we can't breathe, and we're destroying rib cage function as well. So that's probably the big 3 pillars for movement health and biomechanical health and muscle health and stuff like that, which of course will affect every part of life. But 2 things we can easily do a lot of things about. Well, the easiest is of course footwear, to simply choose footwear that allows your foot to splay. And this will of course be a lot more effective if you actually use exercises and tools to make the foot adapt back to its natural shape quicker. Then it will be even more effective. And then maybe not sitting on chairs all day, maybe implementing more movement and stuff like that. And the deep hip flexor muscles are almost always too weak, not too tight. They might feel tight, but they are too weak. That's why they're tense. That's why they feel tight. So let's come into some concrete examples of what we can do about this. Okay. Oh, wrong direction. Here. So, exercises, spacers, and shoes. I'll come back to what spacers are and more onto shoes. So, actually, I'll tell you a quick thing about shoes before I show you the exercises, just to really emphasize this, because a shoe really needs to be able to bend like this at the toe joints. So if we look again at the foot here, because this is actually some things that get misunderstood. So let's see there, perfect. Okay, so the foot, when we land, needs to be able to be mobile to this is called pronation, to lower the foot arch. It's supposed to happen like this. I'm not talking about collapsing, but I'm talking about genuine pronation. This is supposed to happen when we land. And then we're supposed to push off and become rigid again. So it's supposed to be mobile and then rigid with every step we take. So full joint motion in the foot is doing this motion, lowering the arch, and then heightening the arch like this. And from this view, you can see a slight, it's called eversion of the heel bone, like this. It's not that much, but it's like that. And then also a little bit like that when pushing off. So that means that for the foot to really function well inside a shoe, we need to have this motion available. And we need to have it slightly longer than the toes, so that there's room for this motion. Because the foot actually elongates when the arch lowers. So we need some extra space in front of the toes, and we need full motion here. But inside the shoe, the degrees of motion in the heel bone are actually not that great, which means that, for example, if you sprain an ankle, it's not enough just to have a normal shoe. You have to have some tape or something to not sprain it more. So you don't have to worry that much about the mobility in the back of the shoe. Actually, I know maybe some of you people in the barefoot community want to really like twist your shoes like this and curl them together. But I just wanted to give you like a new thought around this, because it's very important, and I know we all agree on this, that the foot really uses its full mobility. That's so important. But what is really needed for that to happen? Well, especially the toe joints need to be able to bend. Windlass mechanism it's called. And also some extra space for the toes, for the foot to lower its arch. But there's no way, even if it's stable here at the heel, it's not going to hinder the eversion and inversion movement of the heel bone. So you can rest assured. So just to quickly explain, because this, of course, I'm biased because this is I created this shoe together with my team, but so this is the Nova model from Wide Footwear, and it's completely flexible here. And what's unique about this is that it's not completely thin. But I would say if you are walking on grass, if you're walking in nature all the time, thin is probably almost always better. So the barefoot experience, completely barefoot is always the best, and very thin is very good. So and this is not this model. But if you're living in the modern world, if you're living in asphalt, concrete, stone floors or whatever, like that's symmetrical and very like modern, some cushioning actually makes compensates for that while still strengthening the foot with the flexibility here, and the full joint motion is completely available. And maybe the most important is the wide, I don't know if that's seen, but the wide toe box. So it's so wide here. That's so like when you look at shoes, it doesn't matter if you look at ours or others. Look at the really wide toe box, and I mean truly wide toe box. A lot of toe boxes are not as wide as they say. It needs to be truly wide so you can truly splay your toes there. It needs to be flexible at the toe joints so the full motion can happen. And the amount of cushioning has more to do where you're living your life. If you're living only in nature, or if you're in modern society. And if you have any questions, put them in Q&A. I'll come to them soon. But then we will jump to some exercises here. So I want you to try this, and now I want you to remember how I can do it here, it's fine. I'll just stand up here again, and I'll actually stop sharing this screen so you can watch me first, and then you'll get these pictures later. Okay, so I want you again, if you remember how it was, then it's fine, or otherwise try it again. So put your feet straight ahead. So put them slightly inwards and pointing straight ahead. It is straight ahead, but it feels maybe a little bit inwards. So put them in that direction and notice how that feels in your knees and your hips. Because most people here feel some tightness and some awkwardness and maybe even some pain. So just notice how that feels in your body, and then try this exercise with me. So take a wall, any wall, and then take a big step back and turn your foot inwards so that your toes on your back leg are pointing to the front heel. So what you want to have, you want to feel a calf stretch, but the most important thing is that you want your whole leg to be turned inwards so the toes are pointing a little bit inwards. And then you just hold this position and you breathe, and you want to feel the calf stretch here. So you try to straighten your leg, turn your foot in, and just hold the position. It will probably just feel like a calf stretch, but what it really does, it untwists the leg, you could say. Just hold this position, just breathe. We'll hold it for a minute or so. So you want to feel the calf stretch. If you don't feel it, put your leg even further back to find the stretch in your calf. Just continue holding it. Just continue holding it. Try to feel the calf stretch. And then we'll change legs. So you'll just take a step back with your other leg. Turn it inwards so the toes point towards the heel. Try to feel the calf stretch on that leg as well. You can also notice if there's a big difference between the legs. It usually is. Remember to breathe, hold the position. You want to feel a calf stretch with a foot that's pointing inwards. That's the whole point. Try to be aligned in the rest of the body, but that's not the most important detail here. The most important detail is to feel a stretch in your calf with an inward foot. We'll do it once more on both sides, and then we'll retest. So big step back with the other leg again. Switching legs again, inwards. Rotate the whole leg inwards. Have your toes point toward the heel of the front leg. Hold the position, breathe. And we'll do one last change up again. So switch legs again. Turn your leg inwards. Try to find a stretch in the calf. Toes pointing to the front leg heel. More or less hip width apart between your legs. And then I want you to stand up again and just put your feet straight ahead once more. And I just want you to notice how it feels now. It feels different in your knees, hips, more natural or not. For most people, and this is probably you, you'll feel that it's more natural to take this position. It's not as forced to put your feet straight ahead. It'll feel a little bit more normal to you. Or actually, this is the natural human position, but it's not normal. So probably it feels a little bit more normal. Most people experience this. So this is a way to not force you, because even if I say now that I want the feet to be pointing straight ahead, I don't want you to force them there before you're ready for it. And this is an important detail, because I want your body to choose that position from a functional point of view and not be forced there. And this is one of the exercises you can try to make your foot or both of your feet want to be more straight ahead by themselves. That's how you create true change, by having your body want to do it. So that's one of the key points today. And another key point is strengthening the hip flexors. So I'll show you an exercise for that as well. I'll do it here on the same spot, more or less. Let's see. Yeah, I think, yeah, maybe like that. So hopefully you can see me now. So what you want to do is want you pull your knee as far up as you possibly can towards the same shoulder on the same side. The other knee you want to push into the floor and push up here. Hold that position. And you want to feel the muscles working here in the hip flexor groin area. Hold that position and circle your foot. So you don't want to circle your whole leg. It's only the foot circling and the rest of the body just relaxing. So pull the knee as high up as you can. Circle with your leg. Hold the position. And you want to feel your groin working. If you don't feel it, pull harder with your knee. And it's more intense than most people think. It looks silly, but it's actually very intense if you do it correctly. And if you don't feel too much, really pull the knee higher, higher, higher all the time. And we can switch sides. And sometimes it's first afterwards you feel that the groin area really worked hard. So pull the knee as far up as you can towards your shoulder, the other knee pressed into the floor. Do circles with your foot. And you can come up again. So this is a good way to kickstart functioning your hip flexor area. So this is combating the sitting, you could say, of modern society. So you have something now to lessen the feet turning out, to being more straight ahead, and something to kickstart the hip flexor area. And now I'll probably show you the picture first, and then I'll show you the exercise. because this was these exercises here that I just performed, and then we have foot exercises as well, because we want to make the foot work as intended. So we'll try these as well. I will do like this. I think I'll bring this here. So what I want you to do first is just to simply put the finger in between every toe. It's not simply, sometimes it's very difficult, depends on the flexibility of your toes. And if you can't fit a finger in between every toe, simply do it as close as you can. Maybe take 1 or 2 toes, but do it like that, and you can hold your foot, and then you simply start to do some movements. It doesn't have to be that specific in the beginning now, so you can just really start to create some movements in different directions. For most people, this feels very tight in between the toes. So if this feels tight and difficult for you, it's probably because you've had narrow toe boxes throughout your life, because this should be a natural thing to do, even though it's maybe not normal to do this. It's supposed to be natural. And the next thing I want you to do is to create some, this is actually to create some genuine pronation in the foot, which is also very important. Many people have very stiff arches. So you grab your foot and your heel bone and you twist it. So the forefoot is twisting one direction and the rear foot in the other direction, and then the opposite way around. So you switch it up like this. So you simply twist the foot in opposite directions. And this might seem very simple, but doing this regularly is actually very, very, very effective, especially paired with shoes that allow for the natural toe splay to occur. So that is definitely something that I recommend. So I'll show you here. So to recap, we have the left exercise to help your feet to be more straight and help your toes to be the rigid levers they're supposed to be. And then we have the deep flexor exercise to kickstart the function in the pelvis. And then we have 2 foot exercises that you can do without any tools, just simply at home, that are effective to restart your feet, or actually help them become natural in their function again. And here I just want to show you an inspiration photo of what's possible with quite easy means as well. So because obviously I've been talking a lot about how society destroys our feet and everything that's bad with society, but I also want you to get some hope. And this is actually just in 30 days. So it's actually a very short period of time. This is the before and after photo. And what this person did was actually quite simple. So she used what's called the starter bundle from My Foot Function. And it is really an amazing value, I would say. As a physiotherapist, I use these tools a lot in my clinic, and they're so simple but so powerful. And the pedis pocket there is, you can see which one it is on the screen. But the pedis pocket is a tool that I use a lot. You could say it's a foot massage tool, and I usually use it when combating hallux valgus as well, because I put it in the other direction from the photo between the second and first toe, and it's a great massage for a lot of people. They're so tense in this area, so I really like that one. And the toe spacers, use them a lot. They help align the toes, and in comparison to insoles, for example, who actually hinder foot function, the toe separators, they line the toes, and then when you walk with them in motion, you actually stretch the plantar fascia and you create movement in places that has been stiff, and it actually helps regain foot function. So it's a different story there. Rubber bands are great for many things, and if you jump on this bundle, you'll know, because there's so many ways you can use them. And yeah, these are specially made with the very great distance between, because many rubber bands, as a physiotherapist, I know they're more for shoulders and for hips, but these are especially made for the foot, so they're great in their length. And so I can really recommend this bundle. I'll come back to it as well. And actually, it's a discount code as well that works for you. So this is for the webinar. All of you who are attending live here, and actually for you watching the replay as well, can use the code. And then there's maybe even the most value in the Fix Your Feet course, because that's a guide to a lot of tools. So it's a great start where I just showed you these exercises, but if you want to dive deeper into foot health, I can truly recommend this starter bundle. It's great value for money. And we from Wide Footwear also wanted to give you something for being here and listening to me, and hopefully gaining some insights around foot health. And yeah, so we gave you a discount code, and the code is webinar easy. And here are models at the moment. So we have a lot of them, a lot of the colors and sizes have sold out. So if you're interested, grab a pair quickly. And the sandal, for example, have been so popular. And the Nova that I showed you before is to the right. Yeah, it's small screen now, but this is my personal favorite. I'll just show you quickly again so you can see it full screen, because I really like this one. It's so lightweight, so flexible, and very wide, but it doesn't look too wide. So you can be in your natural surroundings and feel normal, and even if you care about your foot function. So, and since it's a little bit cushioning, especially if you're new to this and haven't heard this before, it's such a great start to not go completely barefoot from the beginning. And so important to still strengthen the foot and stuff like that. So that's, as a physio, I feel very confident in recommending that shoe for everyone, really, especially if you live in the modern society. We have a sports shoe called the Halux for exercise and training, the gym and stuff. And the Arcus, the top picture, might be even the best one for someone transitioning from normal shoes to this, because it's very comfortable. A lot of people love it. It's very durable as well. So yeah, the discount will be up there for you guys, and we are very happy that you have listened to this. And like, maybe I should have started with this if you don't know me, but why should you trust me? Now this is in Swedish as well, so you probably won't be able to read what these people say, but these are different. One world record holder, there's a world champion, there's actually 2 world champions on this picture. And I have so many clients throughout the years who have different, very high merits. But what I do the most, even though it's always fun to work with athletes and champions of different sorts, what I do the most is actually helping just normal people with pains in your body. So that's what I do most day at my clinics, and also my team. And then I know that's what my foot function does with so many people in their foot health. So that's like the mission that we have, to really try to help people and bring foot health awareness to more people. So I guess it's time for Q&A now then. So let's do that. And I'll see here. So I'll simply start by, actually I'll do like this to see the Q&A better. Yeah, so, okay. So there's a lot of questions. I'll try to take as many as possible. Will your feet get stronger by using shoes like wide? Yes, they will. So the important thing for feet to become stronger, the most important factor, is for the shoe to be able to truly bend like this. Because when it bends, that means that your toes can actually use this windlass mechanism, and the foot muscles will strengthen. If it's a completely stiff sole, it will be more like the foot will walk like a unit like this, and it will not bend. And that will make it stiffer, and it will also make it less strong. So studies have shown that in 6 months, around 60% increase in strength happens if you walk in shoes that are flexible in that manner. So yes, your feet will get stronger. Can you correct bunions? Yes, you can. All bunions are, of course, different in their severity, but a lot of bunions, most of them, is correctable. And I have had so many patients, and I know my Foot Function have hundreds of stories of people who were booked for surgery, but they could reschedule, and then they didn't need it at all, actually, after doing exercises. And for me personally, I've turned around so many bunions that I know it's possible in most cases. There's of course extreme cases, but even they usually get better. So if you have bunions, I also know that my function has a bunion package, or yeah, you'll find it on the website. It's something named something like that, and it's very popular and has helped so many people. So I can strongly recommend that. No question, but I just want to say I'm so grateful for wide, especially because I have a small but extra wide feet. Thank you for the nice Nova. I wear it all the time. That warms my heart for that message. So thank you for that, and I'm happy that's the mission. So that's what we want. We want people to, yeah, to use our shoes or functional shoes overall. Do you have the sandal there so I can see it? Yes, I think I do. Yes, I have it here. So I'll show you the sandal. So it's yeah. So this is so you can see the shape here is very foot shaped. So you can have a aligned big toe. It's also the same flexibility, very flexible. If you compare it to a regular one, it's so stiff, but this is so a lot more flexible. It's very nice feeling here. It's just what I would say, just enough cushioning, not too much, not too little. Very comfortable. It's been extremely popular. It was way over expectation from my side. It's been so popular. How fast can I expect the results if I do both the starter bundle and the shoes? Everyone's different, but usually you feel the difference quite fast. You can really feel that you're on the right track probably within the first 10-20 days. But of course, from person to person, it can take months for some people to be pain-free, and for some people it goes quickly in just a matter of days or so. The example I gave you is not the only one. We have a lot of people who have done a 30-day challenge. So they wear a wide shoe, they do the package, and we've measured them on the plantar pressure plates on the 3D scanner. We've seen some amazing changes in a very short period of time. But of course, everyone's different, and the more help you get on your journey from professional help, the quicker it goes. But I would say having a wide shoe, for example, or a shoe that supports foot health together with the starter bundle, it's crazy effective and such a good purchase for yourself and your health, overall health. Because I hope the message has gone through here that the foot will affect all the body. So even if you have pain in your lower back, or even in your shoulder, it's more typical of knee pain, hip pain, lower back pain, that the foot is very involved. But it can be as far as neck pain and shoulder pain. And it's finding the functional root cause. It's so important. What is the most problematic thing about flat feet? This is an interesting one because there's many potential problems, of course, but I would say that high arch feet are usually actually a bigger problem in my experience than flat feet, because most people who think they have flat feet, they don't have as extreme flat feet as they think they do. And most people who think they have normal foot arches have very compact and very high arches, actually, very rigid arches. So, and that hinders the. I'll try to show you here. So if you have a very high arch like this, that hinders the function, like the shock absorption phase when you're supposed to do this genuine pronation. That is difficult for the foot. It can't really happen when it's stuck in this position. So it becomes very, very stiff for the foot to walk. So a high arch is often even a bigger problem than a lower arch. But if you have a lower arch yourself, or someone you know, or someone listening to this, I would say that one of the best solutions to fix a low arch is aligning the big toe and strengthening the hip flexor. So strengthening the hip flexor is, for example, in the way I just showed you, like when pulling your knee up and circling your foot, because that really challenges the brain muscle connection, and then aligning your big toe, which means, of course, that you need a shoe that allows for alignment. That's part of the problem with modern shoes, that they hinder the natural foot function from occurring. But it's also like if you have a flat foot and if you're thinking of it, the foot as a shock absorber, if it's supposed to land and then shock absorb and then come back. If it's already in the bottom, there's no place to shock absorb. So that force has to go somewhere. It can't just disappear. So it'll end up in your knees and in your hips and up the chain. For hiking long distances, the shoes need to be more stiff or not as flexible as the one you show. Actually, that is a common misconception in my world, at least, because for some reason, every part in your body you're supposed to exercise. You're supposed to exercise your abs, you're supposed to exercise your arms, you're supposed to exercise your core. But for some reason, the foot is not supposed to be exercised in the typical sense. I'm not agreeing with this. I'm just saying, like, in the typical sense. So in the typical sense, you're supposed to have like a stiff arch where your foot can't move, so you can't sprain your ankle, you can't hurt your feet. That's like the thought process of it. But really, it's a misconception, because the more flexible your foot can be, the more it can adapt to the surfaces, the stronger it becomes, the better the balance it gets. And I'll show you in this manner here, because if I have a foot, if we're talking ankle sprains, for example, because many people are very afraid of repeat ankle sprains, because they think if my foot becomes more mobile, I'll have more ankle sprains. But it can be the other way around. I'll show why. Because if I'm very stiff here in the midfoot, so I don't have any relative motion in the midfoot. What happens if I'm falling is that the whole foot is falling like this and then falling like this. So if the foot itself is very stiff, where is the movement been taken out? Well, up in the ankle. So the ankle will be having the most motion if it's stiff down here, which means that the ankle sprain risk is actually bigger if I'm very stiff in my foot. When I say my foot in this scenario, I mean the midfoot and I mean this part here. But if I'm very mobile down here, the motion will occur in the midfoot primarily and not as much in the ankle. So the risk for a new ankle sprain is actually less if I have mobility in my midfoot than most people thinking it has to be as stiff as possible. And I know that's not exactly your question, but it's the same theme. It's like, for some reason, a lot of experts out there are saying that it needs to be so stiff so the foot can't move. But I would say that's not really the case. And of course, if you're very used to normal shoes, it might be a period where you need to strengthen them before you can hike very long distances, for example. But you do not need, in the long run, you do not need a stiff sole. Yeah, now there's some question in Swedish as well. I'll skip that. Yeah, here, this is very interesting, because I saw a foot specialist that recommended a stiff rocker shoe as I have a rigid big toe. It didn't sit right with me. I'm a long distance runner and I'm trying to find a wider toe box supportive shoe. Does Wide have a running shoe? We do not have a running shoe at the moment. I usually recommend Bahe or Ultra running shoes. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I think they're good enough. But to your question, because if you have a stiff big toe, we need to ask ourselves why. Because there's a little bit difference if you have a functional stiff big toe or if you have a truly degenerative disease in the big toe joint, for example. So arthritis or something in that sense. So for most people, having a stiff big toe is very possible to work with an increased mobility, which of course then is good to keep it mobile by having shoes that bend, because then you want your big toe to really bend, and it's so important for the whole kinetic chain. But of course, if you have an injury in the big toe joint, that's a literal injury that it's difficult to fix, then you might not. That might be a case for having a stiffer sole, or at least some kind of solution there. But for most people, even if you have an arthritis or an injury, you can still make it a little bit more flexible. And when you make the rest of the foot more flexible, it can actually make the strain on the big toe less. So if you get the whole cushioning of the foot better, for example, there will be less stress on the big toe and stuff like that. And also actually the hips and the knees. If you have more cushioning in your hip structures, then the foot will take less strain as well. So fun listening to you. Have been wearing wide since the early days. That's very fun to hear. Thank you for that. How long will it take to improve my foot function? Is the starter bundle all I need to get started? Yes, it's literally the starter bundle. So I think that's all you need. It's a very good start. It's comprehensive. I would strongly recommend it to have it together with a functional shoe. And of course, I think the wide shoes are the best, but a functional shoe that supports your foot health. And be sure to make sure that it's wide enough at the toe box, because some brands saying they're wide are not that wide actually. So check that out so you're sure that it's a wide toe box that truly fits your big toe splay and toe splay. Is there not an issue with not having a back strap? You're thinking on the sandal. I see your point, and I know it's a very common point with the back strap. Actually, being in Sri Lanka and seeing, because one of the theories is that the toes are gripping for you to hold on to the shoe, and that could create potentially hammer toes, for example. But seeing thousands of people in Sri Lanka looking at their toes wearing flip-flops or sandals without a heel strap, and none of them had developed hammer toes or such. That kind of changed my view a little bit on this, or a lot on this actually. And it's more about finding the right fit so that your foot doesn't slip around a lot. And it's actually, when it's wide enough, the toes can splay, and I don't see it as the problem you could think it is. And that's also the experience from a lot of customers. With that said, it might come a version in the future with a heel strap for those who want that. Okay, this is a complex question, but I'll raise it because I think people have something to gain from this. I jammed my right big toe badly about 8 years ago, and I do not have full range of motion in my right big toe. I have at least 60% flexion, but the metatarsal heads, this is technical, but seems to have some calcification. Can this be reversed and get back to full range of motion? Of course, it's impossible to say without doing a real consultation and tests. But I would say if it's 60% flexion capability at the moment, that's not that bad. It's probably very likely that we can regain the function more from that 60%. And there's so much tissues, fascia, densifications and stuff that you can work with. So I'm pretty sure it's possible to get better. And then you say, I feel like this limitation of full range of motion has affected the whole right side of my body. And this was the point I wanted to lift for everyone to hear, because that is my experience. That it's so common that a locked up foot can lock up that whole side. And that's why it's so important, for example, to get a starter kit, to get a new pair of shoes, to really allow your foot to soften and regain mobility and range of motion, because it truly unlocks the whole mobility, the whole kinetic chain when you work with it. So it's really important to try to become natural again. My podiatrist said that the sole of the shoe should not be so flexible. I know this is very common advice. I think you guys know why I don't agree with it. I'll just show you quickly again that since it's so essential for a foot, see if I can get it in focus. There. Since it's so essential for a foot to be able to be mobile when absorbing forces and then to be rigid when pushing off, it's so essential. It means that the foot needs to have space to do this. That's why we can't have a very hard orthopedic insole here that hinders this motion, and it has to be able to bend here for the innate foot function to happen. So if the shoe doesn't bend here, the foot can't bend here. And if there's something in the way here, the foot can't be flexible like this. So it's so important if you want the foot to function as it's innately possible, you truly need a flexible shoe that allows for that. Otherwise, it simply won't happen. And that is unfortunately the case. When will the study be published? It is on the way, I promise you. We are working hard to get it published. The results are in, we know the results. We did actually prove that the shape of the shoe affects the shape of the foot. It might seem very logical, but it was not proven before. But we did prove that, and we did prove it on the same group of people genetically. So it's you can't blame genetics anymore. And we hope it will be published soon, but soon might be a while. But we're working hard on it. So it's in the process is ongoing. Do you do consultations? I do, but I'm fully booked for over a year, so it's very difficult, I would say. I would recommend reaching out to My Foot Function regarding consultations. I know the team very well, and they're great. Yeah, I think it's important to point out that toe box should not just be wide, but also have the correct shape to allow the big toe to point straight ahead. Many shoe brands market wide models, but they still push the big toe towards the other toes. And this is what I meant, even though maybe I didn't say it good enough, because it's so important that it's actually like this. The big toe is not even supposed to be straight. It's actually supposed to be more abducted. Like if these are my big toes, if this is straight, the big toes, the perfect position is actually like this. Maybe not that much, but still, like this, I would say. So the shoe has to allow for that to happen. So it actually has to be that directional. So it's not just straight ahead, because if it's straight ahead, it's actually mildly hallux valgus. And that's what I mean by truly testing the shape of the toe box, because a lot market themselves as wide, and they're not truly wide. So try that. What do you recommend for a foot with very low arch and also low heel? As I said before, really, like strengthen the hip flexor, align the big toe. That's basically the most important factor. So of course, if it was a one-on-one consultation, you could be more specific, but that is the basics and the most important things. Can I keep wearing my normal shoes and just training? Like when you're training, I guess, exercising, I guess you mean. I mean, of course you can. The important thing is like if you, for example, have a functional shoe 70% or more of your overall time, you will do great things for your foot health. So if you exercise 1 hour here and there in another shoe, I would say that's fine. It won't feel comfortable when you get used to a functional shoe, but it's probably fine if you in the overall day of in your overall life you have something supporting your foot health. Yeah, there's a lot of questions, guys. I won't be able to. I'll have to stay here for 4 hours to answer all the questions, but I'll take some more, and then if you appreciate this, please let us all know, and we might do another one. And if you have questions, send them to us, and we will structure a new webinar around them. So if there's a lot of interest, we'll do more. It seems so from today. So there's a lot of people who have been joining. There's a lot of questions coming here, but I'll take 2 more questions, and if you have more, just send them to us, show the interest, and we'll do another round of this. How does the sizing of wide shoes compare to Birkenstock? Well, it's I think it's one size. It's the same. Yeah. Okay, I got the info here. It's the same. Yeah. So if you have the same size you can just simply choose the same. Have you used shockwave or stem wave to reduce inflammation, even break up scar tissue to regain range of motion in big toe? I usually use manual techniques, fascia techniques, but that's not very helpful for you guys. So I will say like this: there are extreme cases that need manual help, but in most cases, for most people, you can do so much by working on exercises that you can do yourself at home, stretching your big toe, working on it daily. It's more about if you work on it just a small amount daily, it will do a big difference. And then also having shoes then that will help that motion to be regained. A lot of people saying thank you for the heel strap explanation, so I was glad that came through. Really interesting and useful and helpful. Please do more webinars. Thank you. Will you do more shoe effects? We hope so. So that's actually in the pipeline. We're planning more shoe effects in different parts of the world. So I think that will be the last question for today. And as I said, send more questions if you have them. Contact my function and we'll put hopefully something together again. I hope you got some insights today. I hope this was fun. It was fun for us. And yeah, thank you all for coming to this live webinar. And please tell your friends about the replay if you want them to also get this info. Yeah, thank you.